Blockchain is one of those technologies. I think most people have heard of it now, mainly, I guess, with regard to Bitcoin and some of those cryptocurrencies like that. But for a lot of people, we have some idea of kind of what it is, but not really. I mean, it's quite hard to understand, I think, when you're not in it. So you must have had the challenge now of kind of trying to explain blockchain in all kinds of different ways to all kinds of different people. I mean, what would you say is perhaps the most effective or the simplest way to try and explain kind of not just what blockchain is, but what the real potential is for it to change things in a quite dramatic way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good question. I think a lot of answers that I've heard to this question just really overcomplicate it, and sort of the way that we look at it and use in sort of our decision making is, blockchain at the end of the day is a system or an enabler to solve inefficiencies due to human trust issues. And so you can think about any scenario where you need to essentially trust someone, say from like a business perspective, or there's multiple parties that need to trust each other. You can essentially have blockchain solve these trust issues. And so, between two different parties, you can use things like pre-programmable contracts that essentially program out the things that you would normally trust someone on. But now you could essentially like escrow, say like funds in cyberspace and have it pay out based on some sort of outcome. You could look at, multi-parties and trust, say, related to, food supply chain.
I think examples might be the best way as well. Do you have any examples of some of the companies either you've worked with or that you're aware of who are they developing blockchain-based solutions or using blockchain right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of like great examples out there. I mean, we have a lot of our portfolio companies that I can also talk to, but maybe I can mention some of those later. I think like some interesting ones to bring up would be, for example, I don't know, like Walmart, like since we were sort of talking about supply chain, right? So Walmart actually has done quite a lot on the blockchain front. And so actually they started off first with pork on blockchain. And so they did this in China with Tsinghua University, which is my alma mater. And they were doing it to prevent national foodborne outbreaks. And so that whole sort of experiment went well. They were looking at, essentially tracking from producers, processors, distributors, and grocers. That all went well. And they said, okay, let's go with something even more complex, right? So that was sort of a pilot. Let's go with something more complex. So they said something that's even more complex is in North to South America, sliced mangoes, because it's just much more middlemen in that process for them. And like, also like if you were to walk into a Walmart in Arkansas and you were like, where did these sliced mangoes come from? And you're looking at just a package of sliced mangoes, like how can they track it? So this would actually take them 7 days to do before they implemented the blockchain. 7 days of like manual, like figuring out all these paperwork, figuring out where these came from, all the people involved. So now they can do it in 2.2 seconds. Like that's live. That's live. Like this is, yeah, which is crazy, right? You think about like, that's a huge benefit. And that's like still, I mean, it's a big one, but like it can get much bigger. And so they were like, let's go even further, right? So Walmart says, let's go further. In China, then they went back to sort of the China region. They said, let's do for Walmart China with VChain and Tsinghua University, let's actually create more transparency for our users or our consumers. And so their goal by the end of this year, which I'm sure will be slightly delayed with COVID, but the goal by the end of this year was to have 50% of all fresh meat, 40% of vegetables, and 12.5% of all seafood that they're selling in China on blockchain. And the big benefit of this is, as a consumer, you can just walk into any Walmart then, scan the QR code on the product, know exactly, like, say if you're getting beef, exactly what that cow, like where that cow's from, like what weight it was, how healthy it was, what was it, grass-fed or grain-fed, who its veterinarian was, like all sorts of information that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. And this will drive better customer loyalty. It'll drive, whether that increases margins or not, like it'll either make people willing to pay more or they're just not willing to pay for the other stuff because these guys give more information. And so it's definitely going to drive better retention. And this is a big deal because then you look at other products like seafood is mislabeled, I believe, the majority of the time in North America. And so the ability to track this properly is very important. There's other great examples that aren't supply chain. I just wanted to touch on that one because we were sort of mentioning some stuff on supply chain earlier, but like take, I don't know, HSBC, for example, right? Let's go finance.
Yep.
So HSBC actually does FX settlements, right, between their different entities, essentially, right, and globally. And so they said, we want to create a system that's on blockchain that can be even more efficient. And so they went through this exercise, and now they've built it out fully. It's been almost a couple of years now, I believe. And since then, they've done 11.6 million trades on their blockchain, and it's been over $1.2 trillion of value moved, and they've saved 25% over their traditional process, which is crazy, right? Like, this is huge. Like, everyone's going to follow suit in their industry because you have to. It's just an ROI calculation, right? And so, like, these are like very real things that organizations are doing. Now, of course, these are more private blockchain initiatives. There's a lot of stuff happening on the public blockchain, and a lot of people, depending on sort of how much in the blockchain space they might sort of dislike sort of that private space. But I think it's very real. It's creating real value. It makes a lot of sense. On the public blockchain stuff, there's a lot of good stuff happening as well. But I think there's still challenges on scaling, right? So depending on the blockchain that you're looking at, there are still challenges on scaling. We're seeing that right now with, a big movement in decentralized finance, a lot of congestion on the networks, costs soaring on the Ethereum network and even on Bitcoin network and stuff like that. And so these are still challenges with public blockchains, but there's, I think a lot of exciting potential.
If you like this video, why not check out the full interview it's an excerpt from. You should see a link to that full interview somewhere here on the screen and also down in the description box below. Consider liking this video and do subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with all my videos as they go live. Thank you so much for watching, and stay curious.